Hello and thanks for tuning in once again. I'm back after doing a little bit of traveling and dealing with a cold. Luckily, I have my glass of handy camel urine and milk to drink here, which is helping me feel a lot better, though I do get the occasional urge to kill a shepherd. I'm not sure why that is. I guess the side effects. But anyway, this is my 100th video. If you'll notice, December was a very productive month. I was trying to get to 1 year, 100 videos. We need nice round numbers to work with. We have a little bit of math to do in this video, and it'll make the math easier. So easy that Zakir Naik could even... Okay, never mind. We're going to cover a couple of topics in this video. I want to address a couple of things that my normal format doesn't allow. So first, 1 year, 100 videos. It's been a lot of work, and I'm glad to say that I'm even getting some good feedback from some Muslims. I wanted to, acknowledge that and give credit where it's due. So we'll start with a couple of comments that I have for you. I wish Muhammad, peace be upon him, ordered chopping the tongues of the liars and hypocrites too, and you know who I meant by that. Very nice comment here. I think this person, I think that's their way of saying 2 thumbs up, 5 stars, good job, keep up the good work. Another comment here, I don't want to see you in Jannah. You deserve to die as a kafirs like Abu Jahal and Abu Lahab. I want to see you and your followers to be burned for eternity in hell. I think I got that right with all the broken grammar and so forth. So once again, a very encouraging comment here from the Lion King. Christians are a bunch of racist devils. I see that one a lot. And I am a sick monster, which is an interesting description. And of course, there's no suspense where I'm going to hell, inshallah. And this one is... You should be killed for that image you made for this video, referring to replacing the Kaaba with a vacuum cleaner, referring to the vacuum of Islamic thought. Yeah, I couldn't resist. I'm a filthy, polytheist, redneck, hillbilly cross worshiper. Wow. I mean, that gets me right here. And perhaps my personal favorite, against the evidence I marshaled against Muhammad being in Isaiah 42, we have the children of Kedar are the Arabs, because he says so. You filthy pork-eating, uncircumcised pagan. So wow, really appreciating the good feedback from Muslims here as we reach the 1 year point. There are some other comments I want to address too, and I have them right here. This channel apparently is a good way of making dollars. Okay, and once again, we have, I see that your show becomes more and more for layman Christians. Why? More money? And once again, moreover, what all this trend of ignorant Christian Americans who make vapid accusations to gain money. That's right, you've got me. I do this for the money. That's why I do it. That's why I have a Patreon account. It's making me rich. And in this video, I have to be honest with you. That's why I'm doing this channel. I actually have my Patreon account here to make you all jealous to see about how much money I'm making here in this production. And I'm going to share that with you right now. All right, here you have a screenshot of my Patreon account, which I'm actually going to close. Some of you know that Patreon is censoring free speech and so forth. And so I'm just going to completely get away from them. I haven't cashed in, so to speak, on what's in Patreon. I really don't know how to work Patreon. Honestly, I opened it at the suggestion of some others. But I've blurred the users out here, of course, for their privacy, but I've added up the amount of money here on my Patreon account, the amount of money that I have the potential to make if I would actually take the time and figure out how to navigate Patreon, which I won't. But to those who have, pledged their support, as they say, it's really not about the money. It's very encouraging that there are people out there who want to support the channel in that way, and so I do very much appreciate it. It is literally the thought that counts. I don't care about the dollar amount, so thank you for your support. But I want to show Muslims that I am doing this for the money. The total potential I have to make from Patreon, as you see right here, is $60. Now here's the easy math part: 1 year, 100 videos, and a 5-hour minimum. Okay, so let's say from the time I initially come up with the next topic that I'm going to do a video on, do the research, systematize the data, shape it into a coherent, logical format, film, edit, review, check all the citations, etc. By the time I do all that, this is an underestimate for sure, but a 5-hour minimum per video. It's actually a lot more. And that doesn't count addressing comments and so forth. But if you just assume the 5-hour minimum for 100 videos for 1 year, that comes up to 500 hours just in this first year here on YouTube, with an annual potential income from Patreon of 12 cents per hour. So that's right, Muslims, I do it for the money. Give me that 12 cents an hour. What would I do without it? So no, I don't do it for the money. But if I did do it for the money, I would be a little bit more obvious about it. And I might do something like this.
We need the following. We are looking for just 500 selected people that will give just £100.
So this would be a really good example of a video I might produce if I was doing this for the money. Now, why do they need all of these resources? Let's see.
But we have one big problem, and we need your help. If we do not get the necessary funds that we need, we will not have a studio, we will not have a media team, we won't have an editing team, and we cannot dedicate our...
Okay, so I will stop the video at this point. He brings up a good point. You don't have a media team, editing team, production team, etc. Even for my small channel, I have to give it to Ali Dawa here. Even with my small channel, I do have a production team that works behind the scenes. Because you can't do this with one person, even with just a small channel like mine. So I thought it would be a good idea here in the 100th video, a good opportunity to introduce you to my production team that works behind the scenes in solidarity with what Ali Dawa is talking about here. So here is my production team. Of course, we'll start with the content originator. This is the guy, kind of a shady character. You might not want to run into him in a dark alley at night. I'm not sure. Kind of a mysterious figure for sure. But this is the guy who comes up, conceptualizes the ideas for each video. So that's this guy. I'll go ahead and give a break for a round of applause for him. I also, of course, have a videographer. You don't get to see much of this guy's face. He's behind the camera a lot, of course. But yeah, I do have a videographer. So that's right, a round of applause for him. Moving on to the next staff member here, I do have a producer. He's the big money behind the production, one of those sort of stuck up in the air kind of guys. But anyway, that's him. That's the producer for what it's worth. And then for the videos where I'm going through technical material, whether it's from a journal or dealing a lot with Greek or Hebrew or something, it's nice to have a peer review. And so I do have a peer review here. His nose is always stuck in the book. You really don't see much of him either. But so Dawa makes a good point. You do need a production team behind the scenes to do this type of video. But let's move on and see what else Dawa has to say.
Allah says in the Quran,
من ذا الذي يقرض الله قرضا حسنا فيضاعفه له.
Okay. So when he did this during the debate with David Wood, it made me think of the goats. You know the screaming goats? Let me play an example for you. So when I first saw this, it reminded me of Hijab. Hijab's a lot like a goat with his singing of the Quran. I thought about this during the David Wood debate as well as during this video where he and Ali Dawa are begging for money because they're both loud, obnoxious, unintelligible, full of nonsense. But at the end of the day, apparently they like the noise that they're making because they just keep doing it. So no, I don't do this for the money. If Muslims, you want to find someone who's doing it for the money, you can look at your own YouTube apologists there. But no, I do this because of the Great Commission and because, honestly, the joy of talking about the Bible and being able to share what little I know with others. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that. A lot of people ask, why Islam, and they want to know about background and so forth. I understand that there's a completely natural questions, but honestly, I feel like I'm a very boring topic, and I really don't want to discuss myself. I mean, I'll just say the short version is that you hear a lot of different things about Islam, as I did several years ago and decided to go to a local mosque, but I wanted to do my homework first. And so I spent the better part of a year reading primarily Islamic texts. It was a miserable year, and then went to the mosque and found out that I had overstudied. Most of the Muslims there barely read the Quran, and the vast majority of them will never crack open a book of the Hadith or Tafsir or Sirah or anything like that. And so I met a bunch of nice people during my visits to the mosque. They were nice people, welcoming people, completely ignorant about their religion and believe a lie. It's actually very sad. And so that's kind of the image that I project on all Muslims. And I thought, okay, yeah, sure, the imams are tired of me going there and and asking questions. So why not take what I've learned and what I continue to learn as I study Islam and put it into a narrative format and put it on YouTube. So that's the short version. Again, a boring topic, so let's move on to something more interesting. There are several other YouTube channels of which I am the least, and I wanted to mention those and encourage you to support them. Jay Smith, for example, that other racist white Christian missionary, Jay Smith. He's been studying, if I have my chronology right, Islam and working with Muslims for the better part of his adult life. It shows his commitment to God, his commitment to the Great Commission, and his commitment to the Muslim community. He has, of course, his channel, The Jay Show, which is not produced by him. Technically, it's actually produced by a third party who worked with him on that, and so they're in charge of the production and the release of those videos. Jay's personal channel, which I had forgotten about until recently. I'm not very good with keeping up on all the stuff in YouTube, but his channel, Fander Films, P-F-A-N-D-E-R, Fander Films, that's his personal YouTube channel where he produces a lot of his own content under his own direct control. So there's that as well. He reminded me of that recently. I'd, like I said, forgotten about it, and actually went to that channel and watched a couple of his videos. I didn't realize that he had debated hijab publicly there in 2017, I think it was, and that's where hijab shows his true stature as an intellectual midget and mocks Jay Smith, and Jay shows the tolerance there that he has built up over the years of dealing with Muslims. He criticized hijab for his childish conduct, and then he went on to make his points in a very focused and articulate way, which had to have been difficult with hijab, standing there acting like a child. But, Jay Smith has done a lot in the world of Christian apologetics and Islam. Certainly recommend both of his channels. You have David Wood has been doing a lot of good material with Sam Shamoon and Anthony Rogers as well. A lot of their live streams, especially that they've been doing lately, I don't have a lot of time, maybe 10 minutes or so every once or twice a week to tune in and see what they're doing. But Dave and Sam are really good live Q&A team, and that's a really good resource for people who have questions about Islam and Christianity. You can just about jump on YouTube, at any given night of the week, it seems like, and you have David there with him, or with Sam, or with Anthony doing their live stream work there. So that's a really good resource, and they seem like a really good team to do that type of thing. And so support them as well. You have Tony Costa, who also works with Muslims a lot. He's debated Shabir, as has, of course, Jay Smith, as well as David Wood, and these people, as well as James White. And you have to think that all of these debates are part of the reason that Shabir has drifted so far from Orthodox Islam, and I hope that he continues to drift away. Of course, Christian Prince, his strictly polemic approach, he takes the fight to Muslims on their own turf and in their own language, as very few can. And so, I bring these channels up because, from my perspective, and perhaps to speak on in part at least for some of them, it's very encouraging to see a nice comment when you scroll through the channels. It means a lot. I mean, one encouraging comment is worth about 500 insults from Muslims. Not that they mean much of anything anyway, but so I just want to take some time. I'm sure there are other channels out there. Of course, David Wood and Vocab Malone have recommended my channel a couple times, and that's great. They use some of the content from Isaiah 42 as well. Some of you have alerted me to that, so thanks for doing that. These are things that I don't have time to keep up with myself, but I appreciate you doing that. And that brings up a question. I get sometimes, hey, can I use your content? Can I use your videos or whatever? Yes, don't even ask, just use it. That's what it's there for. No need to worry about asking. I don't care if the content that on my channel appears on some other channel. People are using it for their own purposes. That's what it's there for. So feel free to make use of that. Two things about where this channel is headed in the future. One thing would be the Christian perspective, and the other thing would be the Muslim perspective. As you reflect on all these other YouTubers, for lack of a better term, that I've mentioned in this video, as well as the ones that no doubt I don't know about that are out there, or ones that I forgot to mention, we all have our own different backgrounds, which means that our approach is different to addressing Islam. And so that's very important to keep in mind. I think the distinction is important. I think it's important to have a different approach, different backgrounds all working towards the same goal. And I really don't know what my style is of my channel. It's just, I like good, solid scholarship. I like some sarcasm. I like some humor. And so I just try to amalgamate those two things together. But as I've been involved with this channel and getting communications from people around the world who are viewing the channel, it's incredible when you look at the demographics online and see where the channel is getting airtime in places like Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, places that I could never go and do this type of thing. But you also get comments from Christians. So the Christian perspective of this channel that I've been made aware of is that you get comments from Christians who don't have access to the type of content that I'm able to produce from the Christian perspective of things like the Biblical Insight series. And so you'll have Christians who are in places that are quite dangerous to be a Christian because of Islamic oppression or whatever the case. They may not have the time to dig through a commentary because they're, quite frankly, trying to stay alive, or worried about the safety of their families, or something of that sort. You also have Christians that I get communications from who are in places of the world where just biblical resources just aren't as available. I've gotten requests to translate my videos into languages I've never heard of because they don't have the content in those languages. But what they can do is they can take the content from my channel and adapt it to their specific language, and that's wonderful. But one thing it's made me realize is that there are Christians who are viewing this channel as well as others, and they just don't have access to the type of material that I'm putting out there and that others are putting out there. And so it makes me realize that Christians who want to do this type of thing, who want to have this sort of social media platform, need to be committed to providing solid biblical content that's driven by the text as best as we can, in as much depth as we can, in adapting that into a format that's acceptable on YouTube and appealing to a YouTube audience. We need to be effectively, to say this humbly, the scholars and the theologians of social media. We need to be responsible in the content that we're putting out there, because in the strange world of the internet, YouTube is perhaps the best, and in some cases seemingly one of the only forms of communication where Christians in the West who enjoy freedoms and resources like few other Christians in the world have, we're able to transmit that in our own way to Christians who are in a less fortunate set of circumstances. So that's kind of where I see the Christian side of the channel going. I've done several things excuse me, to adapt the Christian material. I can no longer justify the time to address polemics such as Isaiah 42 or Bart Ehrman and things like that. I can no longer justify the time it takes to produce videos addressing those polemics without putting some sort of positive information in there. And so with the Bart Ehrman thing, I referred people to the Evangelical Text Criticism blog. With Isaiah 42, I took the chance to talk about the divine warrior motif, which is a fascinating Old Testament and New Testament motif there. And so from the Christian perspective, I have to put that type of content in there, solid biblical content. Otherwise, you're just addressing these polemics that are on a second grade level, and it's not doing anyone any good. So that's one thing I'm committed to is in addressing these sort of polemics in the future. I'm always going to include that type of information. The other thing is the Biblical Insight series, and there, of course, to give Muslims a look at the Bible that's unfiltered by their Islamic ideology. As I've said numerous times, that's very important as well. And so in that series, I'm committed to providing as best as I can, adapting biblical scholarship, in some cases, very involved stuff that I'm trying to condense and make appealing and informative to the YouTube audience once again. From the Islamic perspective, we have a lot going on there. The video I produced at the end of December, Muhammad and Merkabah Mysticism, that was an exploration and source criticism of the Quran, as well as some of the other Islamic texts in the Hadith. And you pretty much get the two responses that you're going to expect. Muslims have set up an unfalsifiable position where anything that the Quran agrees with, it doesn't matter if it's the 7th century Arabic equivalent of a comic book or a tabloid magazine. It doesn't matter. Whatever the Quran agrees with, well, it's confirming what came before it, which is what we would expect. And whatever the Quran disagrees with, no matter how authoritative the source is, well, the Quran's correcting it. So there's this unfalsifiable position that Muslims have set up, which I anticipated that response, and also anticipated the response of just sheer anger. You know, who are you to do this to the Quran or to the Hadith or whatever? I'm going to continue that exploration into source criticism. I have 2 more videos where I've formed the content. It's basically ready to go. I need to double check the citations and so forth, and then I'll be working on producing 2 more of those. To the Muslims who have this unfalsifiable position of, well, the Quran's just confirming what came before it, I'm going to wear you out. By the time I'm finished with this series, or I don't know if I'll finish it, but we'll move further and further into it. I don't know that it has an end point. It doesn't in my mind right now. But as we go further and further into it, you're going to find yourself confirming that the Quran confirms all types of texts that you've never heard of and would never take as authoritative. And so I think we're going to continue along those lines. And I do have a couple of requests that I'll be doing as well. Another response to the Trinity Delusion coming up, and you'll see that Muslims draw a lot from that type of content. You wonder why Muslims love to quote Young's literal translation. Well, they see people like Kell, I think his name is, on the Trinity Delusion doing that type of thing. And so I'll be addressing one of those videos coming up as well. And of course, people have asked a lot about the Quran Gateway, and so I'll let you know when that's public. Not really sure how I'll find out about that, but I'll just keep checking with some of the scholars involved in that project. I have access to it, so maybe one day my access will look different, and I'll realize, hey, something's new here, and it's now publicly available. There would be a small subscription fee for that, but it's worth it to benefit from the thousands of hours that scholars have put into that. It's a good database to see the actual textual variants in the Quran. Like I've said, there are images of thousands of these that they've cataloged so far, but also it's a very good resource for searching the Quran in Arabic according to various lemmas and roots and so forth. So it's a useful tool in many, many ways for Quranic studies. So we'll be exploring those areas as well as this channel continues. So I think that's about it. I do appreciate the comments and emails. I will say, just as a quick PR type thing, is YouTube has completely stopped notifying me of comments. Even if you tag me, if we're having a conversation and you tag me, YouTube just has given up because of all of the comments that I get per day. I've noticed for some reason my channel seems to have a very, for the number of subscribers, it has a disproportionately high number of views as well as comments. I'm not sure why that is, but you may have 3,600 subscribers, for example, with 3,200 views on a video with 800 comments. So people like to talk a lot on my channel for whatever reason. That's great. But the result of that is via YouTube, I'm not going to see what you say to me, even if you tag me. I have to go look through the comments manually. I do appreciate email as well. There are many comments as well as email I wish I could respond more in depth to, but it's a time thing. I do have to manage time because this is certainly not my main thing. This is a side project, which of course I've come to love and put a lot of time and effort into it. So I think that's all that I have for this video. We'll get back into some substantial content in the next video, where we once again jump into source criticism of the Quran with the story of Adam and Iblis, and a lot of good stuff coming up with Solomon and the way that Solomon was mythologized in the Islamic text, which extends into the Quran, and we'll explore some of those narratives as well. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.